The Cyclist of River Walk. I firmly believe that the more order and structure we try to force upon this world, the more it resists and presents us with something unexplainable and unexpected. Like a bubble in a flat sheet of plastic that won't burst or deflate, it just slithers to a different place if you try to push down on it. Sometimes these things can be beneficial or even benevolent in nature, like living in a village where everyone is abnormally lucky, or a stretch of road that shaves 30 minutes off your commute, no matter where you are going. I would love to say that this tale I'm about to tell you regards one of those wholesome anomalies, but it doesn't. It's something that has killed before, and almost killed me. I'm currently finishing up my second year in university, and an average B2C student that's unsure how any of this material being taught has anything to do with the course I had picked. One thing you should know about the university is that the parking facilities are god awful. Half of them are solely reserved for faculty, another third is for on-campus businesses, and only one for students that's anywhere close to any of the buildings can house 20 cars tops. I'm fortunate enough to be living close enough to the university for me to walk or cycle. There's a route behind the university rowing club called the rather unimaginative River Walk that I take most mornings. It's one of the few places that people can agree the local council did a good job on. You have around 6 benches facing the river, where most of the pensioners decide to feed the ducks and the unruly swans. A long stretch of field about halfway between my house and the university, where some lazy cattle do nothing but sleep or stare bewildered at you, and 2 bridges with shiny white railings and wooden slats that go prrrr when you cycle over them. In the winter, a van somehow manages to find its way to the bridges, and some tired-looking men in high-vis jackets sprinkle salt and sawdust on the slippery areas for better traction. In the morning, the birds are chirping in the trees, young couples are walking their over-friendly retrievers, and the bushes rustle with local wildlife. You feel completely detached from the city a mere mile or 2 away, and by the time I've reached the rowing club, I'm fresh and determined to slog through another boring morning lecture. Nobody goes down River Walk at night, not the homeless, the drunk, or the local scumbags even glance in its direction. The only few that dare to go down it are the oblivious tourists who have heard nothing of the local legends, or unfortunate students that spend too long in the computer labs finishing an assignment during the next day, and have nowhere to go but home as quickly as they can. You can guess which category I fell into. If you're lucky, you'll pick a night where he doesn't show up, or by the time he does, you've gotten close to the end of the walk, where he usually stops and turns back. People have died, yes, but more have survived, otherwise this would have guarded the attention of official, important people, and the walk would have been closed and left to the weeds. If no one had lived, then there would be no story to tell. Dead men tell no tales, after all. There's a guy in my course, Richard Wesley, who's apparently gone through the ordeal before, around this time last year, when he was new to the city. He must have told the story to everyone in the class twice, and more than 4 times in my case. He calls the entity the boy in the blue coat, but most people call him, the cyclist, simply because, well, he cycles. You never know when he's going to show up, only that he's never before 10 o'clock, and he always appears around half a mile before the rowing club when the walk slowly fades into patchy grass and giant hogsweed. Richard has accommodation nearby the canal which meets up with the river walk about a quarter of the way between the university and the end of the route where I live. Most people veer off the walk and go down the canalway even if it takes them further than their desired destination. The cyclist always goes past the canal, over the little humpback bridge that spans its width. He never leaves River Walk or even glances down the canal. Even if you're by the canal, you're safe. Richard was walking down that way, back turned to the River Walk, when he heard the jovial ting-ting of a bicycle bell, letting him know of its presence. He turned to let it pass and saw two figures going down the walk, one running at full sprint with her hair whipping behind her in the wind, and the boy in the blue coat slowly catching up with her, sitting up from his saddle and leaning forwards hungrily. The girl managed to get over the bridge and was obscured from view by a long fence surrounded by thistles, nettles and wild undergrowth. The boy, not fazed at all by the strong wind, smoothly cycled over the bridge, gaining speed by the dip, and disappeared behind the fence. Then there was the scream, not one of shock, not even of fear, but the long, ragged scream of pain and torment. The girl's name was Sally Bay, and the local police found nothing of her after weeks of combing through every bush along the walk. So you could see why no one in their right mind would want to go down River Walk at night. I have no excuse for my naivety, but one. The last reported sight of the cyclist was 8 months ago, the longest stretch of time he's ever been gone. Most people were beginning to think he was gone for good, and many had taken the walk since without any hassle. The only thing to be concerned about now were the junkies who had acquired a new territory for themselves since the cyclist had left. I was still reluctant to go. It was a little after 9:30, but I was hungry and tired and too stressed out from the next day deadline to be able to think rationally. I stuffed my laptop into its bag, put my coat on, and headed towards the rowing club. A few other people were ahead of me on the walk, but nobody was behind me. The river meandered slightly to the left, so if you look behind, you can follow the curve of the path between the trees. The lights had been recently replaced with these new energy-efficient bulbs that cast a pure white glow that makes everything seem like a noir thriller. I don't know why that was the course my mind decided to take as I walked. Clearly I was too tired to be able to keep it in check. You know how it is. You find yourself zoning out, eyes on your feet, and all thought is background noises that fizzes and buzzes randomly. I was in some sort of trance as I passed by the canal and over the bridge when I heard the noise behind me in the distance. It was the brrrr of wheels over wooden slats. I turned around, still not fully alert, when I saw a flash of bright blue in between some of the trees, sporadically disappearing and reappearing behind the foliage and fast approaching. When you see a character freeze in horror in a movie, you want to either scream at them to move or watch them die slowly and painfully. You never understand why they don't do anything and just stand there to await their fate. I used to be one of the people who would gladly watch them get eviscerated, but there I was, arms heavy by my side, heart pounding in my throat, and my chest held in a vice-like grip of cold, primal fear. The cyclist was still too far away to make out any discernible features, but I knew it was him. Even the trees seemed to lean away in fear. It might have been minutes or even milliseconds, but the thought of seeing those stupid characters die in horror movies, the thought that now I was one of them, and maybe some angel was either screaming at me to move or egging on my death, forced one foot in front of the other, and I was suddenly running. I couldn't see anyone ahead of me. They must have turned down by the canal, which I was grateful of. I don't think I would have warned them, just ran ahead. How does that joke go? I don't have to outrun the bear, I just have to outrun you. I was about 20 minutes away from home if I was walking. I don't know how quickly I'd be there in a death sprint. All I could hear was the hitch of my breathing and the wet slap of my shoes on tarmac. All I could feel was the strap of my laptop bag pressing against me. I yanked it over my head and the initial plan was to hold it in my hand, but a tree branch decided to make itself known and snag itself on the strap. As I tried to wrestle back ownership, I saw the figure in blue glide over the bridge, and I don't know why, but I heard a tick-tick, and a beam of white light danced out from the handlebars. He's got a flashlight now, I thought dumbly. Must have got it in the last few months. I decided to forfeit the laptop to the tree, and I stumbled back into a sprint. The cyclist was catching up, and I could hear him switching gears. Up ahead I saw the path was widening out, and 3 steel bollards indicating the end of River Walk, and behind them was the first few houses of my estate. It should have given me determination, but all I could think about was the sad irony that I was going to die just a few metres before salvation. I didn't want to look back, but of course I did, and if I remember anything of what happened that night, it would be what I saw just then. I know there's a handful of people who think the Cyclist is just some vicious kid, or a potential Ted Bundy in the making. They think he's a danger, yes, but that at the end of the day he's just a human being like us. What I saw convinced me otherwise. There are certain expressions that a human face should be incapable of making, some contours that just don't belong. The Cyclist had one of those expressions on his face. The best way I could describe it is like this. When you're watching a nature documentary and you see something like a lion or a crocodile tearing after its quarry, picture that in your head and you see that even though they're about to kill their prey, there is no malice or anger to be seen. The jaws are slack, slightly agape, and there's tension gathering around the eyes, but everything else is as still as lake water. That's exactly what the Cyclist looked like. It wasn't that he wanted to kill me, he just had to. His full weight was pressed against the handlebars, leaning out so far that any human would have face planted by that stage. One hand was raised towards me, palm open and fingers straining out from their sockets. The bike's light was lapping around my heels, and me not looking ahead, glanced off one of the bollards painfully, my thigh turning purple within the minute. The Cyclist was going to get me, I was sure of it. Whether it was bravery or cowardice, I turned away from him, and saw how close I was going to get before I died. Maybe it was the wind buffeting me forward, maybe I was just pessimistic with my outcome, or some reserve inside of me suddenly opened its floodgates, but I felt my pace pick up, my shoes worn to shreds by this stage, my socks turning pink-red as the tarmac pierced my soles. A man in his driveway saw me running, then he must have seen what was behind me, because he sprinted back inside and slammed the door shut. "You bastard!" I yelled at him, and I was there, on my estate's footpath. Behind me was the rusty shrill shriek of brakes being pressed hard. The Cyclist had stopped. I saw him there, head crooked at an angle, with both of his feet still on the pedals on a stopped bike, like he was doing some sort of circus balancing act, and without touching the tarmac he backpedaled and cycled back the way he came. I managed to get home before crying, slumped against the door with my lungs billowing in and out. I locked the door, pulled myself upstairs to my bedroom, and pulled down the blinds. The adrenaline was still coursing through my veins, and I was still shivering violently under my covers, when I heard something downstairs. It was the slow clicking of bicycle wheels you hear at walking pace. It was accompanied by the bumps and scrapes of something awkwardly trying to fit through the hallway. "Go away!" I screamed, and the thing downstairs, the Cyclist, answered with an exasperated grunt, like I was being rude for being terrified for my life. I heard my front door, and the one I locked, open and close gently. I didn't leave the protected covers of my bed for another few minutes before mustering up the courage to peek through my blinds. Receding into the distance was a figure in a blue coat, cycling slowly back towards River Walk. I didn't leave the confines of my room for the better part of the next day. It was only after the sun was bright and high in the sky that I decided to leave. The Cyclist had been in my house, and when I got into my kitchen I found out why. On the table, slightly sticky with sap but otherwise unharmed, was the laptop bag I had left behind me. Hey folks, and thank you so much for listening to today's story. I do hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, I would love it if you could please subscribe and leave a like and a comment. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and farewell for now.